But George also, one thing he said about Fire and Blood was he put more red herrings into there than he has anything. I was like, so he's just trying to. Yeah.
Why would you bring that up, Kevin? Fuck that.
Sorry. I know.
Well, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
In the name of our king.
All right, hello, welcome back to Vassals of Kingsgrave for some post-Game of Thrones show content. We will also be discussing Song of Ice and Fire books here. I think we're tentatively calling this Gaming the Thrones. I don't know, it's a fun title. We might change that. But just for anyone who is trying to stay unspoiled with the show, just up front, we will be talking about the show completely from start to finish, as well as the books, full spoilers. My name is Adam. I'm also known as Drownedsnow on the podcast of Ice and Fire forums. And I am joined by Kevin.
Hey, creepy nuncle Kevin on the forums.
And Kevin.
Hey, this is Gaiden from the forums.
And Casey.
This is Casey, Blue-Eyed Queen from the forums.
Matt.
Hey, Blue Armor on the forums.
All right. Sara, are you there?
Hey, it's Sara, DrBlood on the forums.
So let's take a look at Euron here. Let's start just with the basics. Obviously, Euron on the show versus Euron in the books are completely different. Euron on the show is not so much a character as he is a plot device. He is the magical plot device that just does whatever they need. Whereas it seems, especially with our spoiler chapters coming from Winds of Winter, that George is setting up Euron to be something next level. How do you, let's say, how satisfied were you with show Euron? I don't even know I need to ask that, but...
I was less satisfied than Cersei was.
Oh.
Were you as satisfied as Euron when he kills the Kingslayer? Because he seemed pretty satisfied.
God.
Didn't you know he died and came back as a pile of rocks?
On a scale of 1 to negative 1,000 krakens.
Yeah, I would give show Euron negative points every time. From like him showing up and upending Balon right off of the rope bridge there, just like comically, to like showing up at the King's Moot and being like, "I king, cool." Like everything was just like didn't make any sense that he did, pretty much ever. Yeah,
but he had fun doing it, and isn't that really the whole point of?
I was constantly amused by the actor that plays him. Like he very much amused me, even though he was such a ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
like,
it wasn't his fault.
Cut out of a character. Yeah.
Why did he want Yara? Just literally just for confrontation.
Reasons.
Because reasons.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean,
there was almost like a sliver of a fun conversation of him like talking to her in the bows of the ship, being like, I have no one else to talk to, but but beyond that, there was fucking nothing, man.
Oh, you mean all the guys who were shouting, "Look out"?
Yeah,
they were just bad conversationalists, like
right. Yeah, the mutes who weren't really mute.
I'll pay him one compliment. I liked him in that episode where he attacked Yara's fleet and killed the Sand Snakes. I liked his performance in that episode.
Yeah, the battle on the boat.
Yeah, he was threatening and menacing, and
yeah.
He had the Ironborn like savagery and brutality like to him. That was pretty good. Although that characteristic fits more Victorian than it does Euron.
True.
It was still fun to see.
Who?
He has other brothers. No, and it's not just because he killed the Sand Snakes. It was a really good episode overall. But otherwise, I didn't like his bug-eyed performance. It's really weird.
Well, I was disappointed in Cersei for falling for his shit. That was like the worst part for me. Like I just
was she finally submitted?
No, I thought she did it because she had to have a reason to be pregnant. So she was like, okay, he's here, he's nobility, so let me just get this over with.
I guess.
Yeah, because that all paid off.
All those memes about him finding out that she lied to him just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there was so many Maury memes that were great.
Yeah, I almost saw that like giving in is kind of the same way Cersei does to, I think, like Osney Kettle Black in the books, where just kind of as a form of pavement, she's realized that she's kind of reached the end of the string that she's pulling him along with, and has to at least provide something to keep him on the right path that she wants him to be on.
Yeah, it would have made sense though if she actually had to do that to string him along. In that moment, it didn't seem like it. It seemed like she was just like, fuck it, Jaime's gone, and
literally
this fits some stuff. It wasn't like he was like, well,
sure.
you know what, I'm out for a while, and she was like, fine, you know. He was just up there being like, well, I'm just real bold, and you know, I'm not like other men. Okay, I guess whatever.
Agree. I feel like I'm looking over The Forsaken again and having all of my fears reawakened, but I think it'll be really interesting to see if the Faceless Men have something to say about Crow's Eye's plans, because I don't know. I mean, if the vision is true and he really is going to just mow through most of the gods who we've seen represented in the temple and Bravos, that the Faceless Men might have a problem with that, which would be pretty cool, I think.
What is the vision of the gods being killed?
Oh, that he says, let's see, let me see if I can find the passage. He says he imagines him on a throne of razor blades. Let's see. But the thing that caught my attention is that one of the gods that's listed is the Pale Child. And he is one of the faces of the many-faced god in the House of Black and White. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on 1 second. Somebody else say something interesting.
Is this from Forsaken, or is it from
Forsaken? Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're doing that, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember where the exact quote was from.
Yeah, here, let me look.
By the way, I mean, this is interesting, but not super related. Don't listen to Forsaken as you're falling asleep.
Oh, no.
You will wake up very sweaty and nervous and worried that all kinds of things are going to happen.
Okay, so.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it says, never, no godless man may set the sea stone chair. Why would I want that hard black rock? Brother, look again and see where I am seated. And damp fair, the Mound of Skulls was gone. Now it was metal underneath the Crow's Eye, a great tall twisted seat of sharp iron, barbs and blades and broken swords, all dripping blood. Impaled upon the longer spikes were the bodies of the gods. The maiden was there, and the father and the mother, the warrior and crone and smith, even the stranger. They hung side by side with all manner of queer foreign gods, the great shepherd and the black god, the three-headed Trios, and the pale child Bacalon, the lord of light, and the butterfly god of Noth. So the pale child is the one that caught my attention because he's the one with the sword. But I don't know. I feel like if he's literally mowing through the many faces of the many-faced god, that his priests would have something very specific to say about that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Casey.
Oh no, I mean, I'm going off on a tangent. Go ahead.
I mean, two kind of really hard things to grasp. Kind of in this series is number one, like exactly what role the Faceless Men are going to play, and do, like, if they have a goal, what is it, and what side kind of they end up on, or kind of who they deem as allies and who they deem as enemies is something I've never been able to fully grasp. And then the other thing is the concept of how do these like gods like manifest, like, because I've always just seen this series as never diving down that particular well of fantasy into having actual physical gods, but they're just more, beliefs and representations of either like stories or historical figures or something. And so, yes, I don't know how the concept of Euron mowing through gods would look like, and how that really plays a part in this.
Just a quick thought on it is I just assume, or just from listening to it just now, that him being on the throne with the dead gods on each of the points is just the damp hair's vision of him, a godless man sitting in the most powerful seat in Westeros. Maybe not him actually killing gods.
Well, I mean, I would agree with that, except that it's prompted by Euron asking, where am I sitting? Right? So he presumably knows exactly what he's going to see, which is disturbing, to say the least.
Or perhaps it relates to him having killed so many followers of so many different religions. He has that speech everyone loves, and I think, was it Feast or Dance? Where he's
That's so great.
Yeah, it's in Feast, yeah. I think it was part of the Kingsmoot thing. Yeah, it's a great one.
The one thing that I wanted to bring up was, Euron is clearly a bad guy here, and I think that Euron is, I feel like I've heard that one George quote, like when after Joffrey dies, he's like, well, yeah, Joffrey's dead, but I have to create another villain, and that's pretty difficult here. And I think that, this is going to be the villain that we get after I assume Ramsay dies somehow. And, I wonder with Dany's story arc if her and Euron will meet. And I wonder, it would make more sense with Dany's demise if she actually was like partnered up with somebody for a time that was like pure evil. Because they're all heading in that direction. So I
hate that idea with a passion.
I feel like it's gonna happen though. I feel it.
I say, even if like she just meets him, like she doesn't even have to be involved with him. It could just be like, a one talking point or whatever. But
right, yeah, I can see that, but like, yeah, but her actually allying with him, fuck that.
There's also the part of the vision where you see Euron sitting next to someone, and people, I guess, assume it's Cersei ever since the Great Sept of Baelor explosion, the lady with the fire on her fingers.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it's not Daenerys, it's Cersei, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Fire fingers.
or Mel, like,
I really don't like the idea of Cersei, being bigger than, like, as big as what the show made her. So I think it leans more towards Dany, but who knows?
I don't know about the Sept of Baelor like exploding like it did in the show. Burning maybe, but I also see
King's
that,
Landing is going to explode at some point.
At
Not
some
all
point,
of it, but
yeah. I also see Dany possibly allying with Euron the way that books have things set up, but she also has no idea who he is. She knows very little about the Lords of Westeros. Even Tyrion wouldn't have a lot of information on him, and if he presents himself correctly, he could, propose some sort of alliance, but it's probably just a method to try to steal one of her dragons, which could be something that sets her off.
Yeah, plus she'll have dealings with Victarion before that.
What if the dragon horn or the dragonbinder horn is actually legitimate, and he enthralls her dragons, and she has to, like, he basically has hostages, like he has her kids as hostages?
What if it's not the dragons? What if it enthralls Targaryens?
They are dragons.
That's all about.
I think it's more. I think it's simpler than that. Like, I almost wonder if, he has the horn. So what if he actually just turns one of the dragons to the dark side, or to the turns it into an ice dragon, rather than whatever the fuck we had in season 7, where they go to north of the wall and they're like, oh, let's get a White Walker and go prove it to Cersei and all that.
Right.
I wonder I was just gonna say, I wonder if Dany losing a dragon on the show, if you just take that basic premise that she's going to lose a dragon, does that give any support to the theory that the dragon horn is real, and that's how she loses the dragon in the books?
That's what I've always assumed, but
it's always a possibility. It's a theory that I hate with a vehement passion, but yeah, it's
because the wall has to come down, and if the wall comes down because Dany flew north for that bullshit on the show, I can't see that.
Well, no, that's ridiculous.
Will a dragon bring the wall down at all? That's not necessarily what has to happen either.
I don't think so.
So, but I could see that like the dragon binder horn possibly, it depends on when it is used, I think, as to what happens in the narrative. But I could see it being something that perhaps has an effect of taking control of one of her dragons, but maybe also not giving that control to Euron. Maybe it does like bring the dragon over to the dark side without anyone really knowing what's going on. Or I mean, this is partially why. I mean, there's a theory that Euron is a failed apprentice of Bloodraven, or that Euron is an agent of the others, or Euron and Daario probably have the most threads connected to them because we know the least about I don't know, where they're going.
Well, Euron's clearly like drinking some Kool-Aid here, so there's also that element.
Literally
drinking Kool-Aid.
Well, I mean, but I do think like imagistically, the connections between him and Bloodraven are much more legitimate than some of the other ones that people are drawing. I mean, I think like the fact that he has a blood eye, the fact that he has one eye, the fact that he does have that dream where he was told that he could fly, and the maester told. I mean, that's exactly what we see.
And they call him Crow's Eye.
Nah, right. But I mean, it's exactly what we see with Bran, right? Where he wakes up from his dream and Maester Luwin is like, "Nice try, kid," right? But he has Jojen to counteract that, and Euron has his own insanity. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict because we have a couple of possible Deus Ex Machina horns, in the mix, but we haven't, we still haven't really seen a big explosion of magic in the books yet, and so it's hard to predict where that well's going to go.
Right. I feel it has to show up at some point. I mean,
yeah.
But it'll probably be surrounding the wall, would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely some interesting stuff with, and potential of when Euron, attacks Old Town and whatever may happen there with all that.
I mean, it might be more subtle than we're thinking too, because I mean the shadow baby magic was, very blatant for one thing, but then like kind of like, maybe that happened for these other king deaths, but maybe not, or maybe it's just symbolic. Maybe it's just symbolic of something rather than being like the true magic.
Oh, the leeches, you mean?
No, I just mean like the horn in general. Like, if somebody blows the horn, like maybe like everything might not come crashing down. There might be more subtle things that come out of that.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be the blowing of the horns is not going to be a simple, have a clear immediate effect or whatever. I don't think.
Do you think that blowing the horn is what won him the King's Moot? Because it does kind of seem like that chapter turned at that moment. That's when everyone
I don't
chanting his name.
Yeah, I don't think that a huge thing of magic was really required to convince the Ironborn. Basically, I don't think I think the Ironborn are an easily manipulated people, and therefore I don't think it was a specific magical thing involved that happened with that. But it was certainly effective in showing a commanding presence for Euron.
I don't really know what to do with this, but I've become marginally obsessed with the language of the smoke and salt prophecy, and more often than more often than anything besides food, salt is applied to the ocean. So it's the salt wind and the salt sea and the salt water, and I wonder if his journey to the smoking sea couldn't be the fulfillment. I mean, I recognize the difficulty with identifying it in Rayella's line, right? But I mean, how much of a subverted expectation would it be if one of our evil characters was actually also the Messiah. Like, what if Euron Greyjoy is Azor Ahai, right? And he was born amid smoke and salt in whatever he discovered in Valyria. I think that would be pretty awesome, because then you're like, okay, well, do we literally make a deal with the devil to stem the tide of this other issue that we're having, or like, do we try and figure it out ourselves, or do we, I mean, because there's
Burn
nothing,
it all.
right? I mean, there's nothing that says Azor Ahai or the prince that was promised has to be like a good person, right? We're assuming the connection between a messianic figure and a beneficial figure, like a morally, upright figure. But I think it would be really interesting to think that like your salvation as a people would depend on someone who's individually just like straight up crackers, right? That's my diagnosis of Euron.
Well, I think thematically that's true. Is it Old Nan that talks about people right after the first long night ended that they went right back to fighting each other?
Yeah. I think that would be really cool, very like George thing to do, that like, oh yeah, you do have a savior. Oh, he's super evil. You're like, oh no. Now what?
Well, it's better to have humanity than not to have humanity.
Yeah, I mean, that's also the possible similar storyline that Dany's going down to. Obviously not to that extreme, but the same concepts are there.
Well, and I think I'll say I think that the importance of the Game of Thrones in the books has to be, it has to have the stakes of needing people who understand the importance of the Song of Ice and Fire to win the Game of Thrones beforehand. That's where I think the show got backwards on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
yes.
Mr. Dr. Blood was speculating this morning that, if they reverse the order, that Bran being king makes perfect sense, not because he can spin a good yarn, but because he is the only repository of substantial knowledge as to how to defeat or potentially how to defeat the others, right? So if they're like, I don't know, just put him in charge, please help us, right? That makes a lot more sense than like, I don't know, he seems cool, right? Like, we like his backstory. I don't know. It makes a lot more sense if you reverse the order.
Yeah. But in the face of the others, even if Euron's willing to fight them, in a certain sense, that makes him a good person. As crazy as that sounds, if something is literally an existential threat, anyone that stands against it, in a certain sense, is good.
I mean, even if it's because he wants to be the existential threat instead, like.
Right. I don't.
Does he want to burn the whole world down, or does he just want to be God?
Unlike a lot of the characters on the show, like in this past season, we can pull bits and pieces from what happened of them to kind of give us maybe some predictions of what is going to happen in the books. But with Euron, it's like there's just nothing there to go off of except for what we have. The Wind spoiler chapter gives us more than anything did as far as Euron's potential motivations on the show. Or where he might be going. Especially because of all the characters they cut out. I don't know what his motivation is. I don't think it's just to conquer the Seven Kingdoms and rule. I don't think that's it.
I didn't even get the impression that was his motivation on the show. Like, he didn't even get that. Like, he literally just wanted to bone Cersei.
Books, I don't think that's.
Oh yeah, no, I don't.
In the show, he just wanted. He promised the Ironborn power and progress, and then joined the losing side. I don't know.
I think he's basically the Joker in the books, right? Like, he literally just wants to watch it all burn to see if he can be the one to burn it. Like that's.
Yeah, the King of the Ashes line kind of seems to relate to him.
Yeah.
King of the Ashes, Queen of the Ashes.
Queen of Ashai.
Well, that's where Dany's living now with Drogon, so.
Yeah. I think he ate her like a cat. I was a little bit surprised that he didn't just cook her and eat her right there, because he looked at her like, is she dead? She did. And then he took a deep breath and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he was going to cremate her, but I thought I did have like a, if he's a giant cat, I know what's going to happen next kind of thing. Which...
I really did want him to roast like Jon there. I thought that was a fair trade.
Yeah.
Just burn them both.
Yeah, and I thought that was a fair trade for Jon, where he's just like, all right, got any other stuff about Dany's side, got to take out the Mad Queen, and I accept the punishment for it.
Like, fire cannot hurt a dragon, but it'll melt the shit out of some ice.
Half of Jon lives.
Yeah. half of him is unburned.
It's like Gus in Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's not a lot that we can take from him from the show, because the show really just used him as they just used him.
Yeah, constantly. I actually kind of feel sorry for him on the show.
Yeah, no, I feel bad.
I
feel like they just fucked over his character.
I expected a turn where he was going to try to take power from Cersei or reveal something, and then it just sort of descended into nope. I mean, his crowning moment on the show is when he walks away from the Dragon Pit Council in season 7 and is like, we're going back to our island because they can't swim. We're cool. Haha, it was a trick. I'm going to get the useless Golden Company. That's the best thing he did.
I mean, the one thing that I will...
Golden Company.
He was a ferryman.
The one thing that I might take from the show that I don't think I would like, given that, I don't love Feast for Crows and A Dance for Dragons, but they're good books. They're just not as good as the rest of the series. But anyways, I do wonder with how the show went. I feel like a lot of it's oh, George added too many characters. Oh, George did this. The other conclusion could be George doesn't have anything really planned for these characters because they're just kind of filler for this little block of time. So I wonder how much I wonder how much these characters will matter as far as end game goes. Not even just Euron, but Fagon and Arianne and all those characters that are very important in those two books.
Yeah. Well, I think this is gonna.
Sorry.
Well, I think you get into plot armor being an issue. Yeah, I think you get into plot armor being an issue because it's if you have the same main, quote unquote, main characters and they survive multiple character purges like you have at the end of Storm of Swords, then it starts to feel like the way the show felt. Where you knew certain characters weren't going to die. Jon kept getting into ridiculous situations. He falls in a frozen lake in full armor and pulls himself out. Just because he's not going to die.
And that was supposed to be magical, right?
Yeah. Didn't Jaime do that?
Yeah.
Jaime fell into water that
fucking...
his horse could ride in, and then fell 40 feet deep, and then came out a mile away.
Yeah.
Yeah, into the trench. The river all of a sudden became the trench.
Nuts.
Him and fucking Bronn.
Lord Bronn of Highgarden. Master of coin.
Can he even read?
I'm telling you, I still think the only reason he's Master of Coin because they were well, Littlefinger was Master of the Coin. He ran the brothels. Bran wouldn't run the brothels. Master of Coin.
No, I thought it was just because if you're a sellsword and you can't count, you're going to get shafted on the regular.
I thought it was...
I think we'll probably talk about Bronn. I think that Bina will probably cover that some. But, I think he'll have Stokeworth, at least for a time. But fucking Highgarden.
Right, yeah, no, he's a fun character in the books for me. But yeah, he's one of the ones where it would be like Casey's point, where he's definitely not that important for Endgame.
Yeah, and I don't think Fagon will be either. I think Euron more so. Fagon, I think will be a means of giving Cersei something to do and some power at some point. But I don't think she's gonna last very long either.
Okay, so here's my thing about Fagon. When I read through the first time, I agreed that he was just a time waster, and I was very disappointed that he had been added in so late, and I was very frustrated about it. But in retrospect, one of the things that I find very, very interesting about the whole Phagon storyline is that Iliomopatis has been there since the very beginning. So I feel like the through line actually is very foundational in ways that on a first read through are not readily apparent, especially with the distance between the books. But I really do at least very much want to believe that Ilio and Varys are the foundation of that, right? So that like there really was a backup plan to their backup plan, and maybe that's too much credit, but I really do. I mean, it's such a sophisticated mechanism that's been in play arguably since the very beginning, and I still question like what their intention was with getting Dany to Drogo, because he says at the beginning of Dance that he expected her not to survive. But I also, I don't know. I really do.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Dany's thing to Drogo was, I assume just a move. She was just being used as a pawn to serve their goal with Viserys.
But like, did anybody really genuinely believe negotiations, as you know, however protracted they were, that Drogo was going to be like, yeah, sure, take my Khalasar, peace?
Oh, that's an interesting thought. If they had realized that Viserys was a no-go, and so they sent him there to die. I think that would be that could be a fair argument.
Because he knew that Viserys wouldn't wait it out. He says to Tyrion that he wouldn't have just let her go. Like, he would have gone with her because he always thought of her as his. And I mean, like, the idea that both of them would have died among the Dothraki kind of makes sense. But I suspect that of the two of them, Dany was always their like outside bet, you know, like she was.
I mean, did they really think anything of her? Like, see, that's the thing. Like,
I don't know.
They might have just overlooked her because she's a woman.
I mean, maybe, but then why give her the dragon's eggs? Like, I keep coming because I mean, he clearly invested.
He never knew they were gonna hatch, though.
No, but I mean, even if he didn't, like, why? I mean, okay, assuming that he never believed that she would hatch them, we've still had repeatedly the value of egg as object stressed to us in the main narrative. So why, in what world would he give her 3 of these effectively invaluable treasures? You know, I mean, it's not a skin made of 1,000 mice dresses, you know, but I don't know. It bespeaks an investment in her that is belied by what he says, but then the way that they turn it around after she hatches them suggests that like they were prepared for that contingency, even if they just imagined that she would be more readily able to persuade Drogo to join the fight than Viserys would. Like, he would be joining on her behalf, never on Viserys's, right? So like maybe that was the.
I think the level of planning that they did, they pretty much were ready for any contingency. As far as there being a through line to, like, in the story, I mean, yeah, it's there because George made it work. On a meta level, we kind of know when he came up with Blackfires and the whole Phagon thread that was between the second and third book. But as far and on the eggs, the one thing I was kind of thinking was, you know, they tell that story, Illyrio does, about him and Varys stealing things and selling them back to people and all of that. So maybe it was some weird code of honor thing that he'd ended up with something that used to belong to the Targaryens and needed to give it back to one so that he could sleep at night.
Option Z is that George just needed to do it. Like, there could be no rhyme or reason to it. It might just be one of those things.
But if that's true, then he's no better than Dan and Dave.
How dare you?
It's a very far leap, I know, in jest, but I think so. I don't think Phagon is not gonna survive as long as some of the other characters, but I think he's still integral to the plot. And I think the main conflict that he presents is a Targaryen ruler that the faith supports.
I think Fagon takes over what Cersei was in the show at the end.
Yes.
Cersei was basically just the cardboard cutout they put up because they didn't have Fagon to be occupying King's Landing.
Yeah.
That's why she gets the Golden Company. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll be a lot more likable to the small folk and the lords of Westeros. Like, I think that will really feed the whole Dany not being able to cultivate love for herself and her rule.
Right, because he got there first. And then she gets there and they're like, what the fuck? We already got a Targaryen.
Well, and the son of your heir comes before his younger, his aunt. That Dany would have a lower claim, right? So,
but the Mad King did give. He placed Viserys ahead of Rhaegar.
He placed Viserys not ahead of Rhaegar, ahead of Rhaegar's children.
The lords, I think, care more about succession than the small folk, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we always talk about power resides, where people believe it resides.
Right.
But I think, I think the main issue is the fact that he's getting there first. And he's getting there. He's going to do some conquering. He's going to be taking care of the people that are maybe causing problems for other people. But he's also going to be securing lordships and, getting people on his side. Like, if he wins over the Stormlands and, parts of the Reach and, very quickly the balance shifts to someone who is especially not coming through burning people. And then all of a sudden you have Dragon Queen who's like, no, I'm here now. And like, man, you're 6 months too late.
I love that.
His timing is actually impeccable.
Suddenly she's the Stannis asshole, where she's like, "It's mind my rights. I got dragon."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like he submitted his patent to the office first, but she had the idea. She's like, whoa! I got this memo right here, and like, we're already in production. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, you
gotta go teach chemistry now, Dany.
So he's probably why she burns down King's Landing, right?
Yeah.
Because she's upset that he got there first. No one loves her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's still the leap of killing civilians. That's the tough
she probably
line
just doesn't start burning the people for no reason
to cross. Yeah, that's kind of the key line that requires the most maneuvering of the plot in her story.
We do have precedent in Maegor. For a Targaryen, for a Targaryen burning the sept, right? So, I mean, if she goes in and, as you say, like the faith is behind him because he's been trained in the faith, and that he is, he has all of these credentials that she lacks. I can see her attempting to, mitigate some of those credentials with flammability.
I know. I thought of an extremely thorough joke last night, but I forget where I was going to put it in this discussion.
It's all right. I got my Tyrell fart joke in.
But with Euron, I feel like he's one of the characters. I think Casey was mentioning this earlier, but like he feels, when you go back and reread the story, he feels more of like you can see that he's a pawn, a piece that George is using. And I kind of feel like his ultimate point, the reason why he exists, is just to get ships to Daenerys. I mean, he's a cool character, but at the end of the day, I just feel like he's just ships.
Well, why wouldn't you just have Victarion do that then? I mean, like Victarion is the perfect Syvass piece where he's like, I have dreams too, y'all. But like he really doesn't have anything to back it up. But then why introduce this like, Omega level?
You need someone with some kind of interest in dragons. Like Victarion would never on his own be like, all right, I'm gonna go try to marry the Dragon Queen. I'm gonna try to go see it's not really him.
And why would you send the Dusky Woman or Dario with him? I mean, it's really weird.
Are you saying that the Dusky Woman is Dario?
Oh yeah, isn't that like agreed in the fandom?
Every Dusky Woman theory sucks.
They all
That's true.
Theory involved.
Every theory sucks.
Well, except the one that she's binging. That makes sense.
I don't get how you can read these books and come to that conclusion, and then it's like a popular theory. I don't know.
I saw one the other day that Varys is actually Iliomapata's wife, Sara, which they're like, there's that time, right? They're like, there's that time that he was dressed up like a woman. Tyrion thought he was actually a woman.
We
And
know
also,
he doesn't have male genitals, just saying.
Right, exactly. Maybe being a eunuch was just like a cover story for the fact that he's a woman. And I'm like, that's brilliant and also terrifying that we've reached that point.
Eunuchs don't have vaginas. I'm just going to go into a little bit of anatomy here. It's not how that works.
Jesus.
I do like the idea that Varys is either connected to the Blackfire line, like through blood, or like maybe like distantly connected, or something along those lines. But
yeah, I do like the Blackfire theory.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's gotten to the level of R plus L equals J at this point, where like there's clearly a Blackfire component just because we've spent so much time, and it has to be something more than like bastards are sneaky, the way that Kat introduces it.
Like top 5 disappointments with the show is no Blackfires. I mean, that's got to be one of the main ones, I think. And why I wish they would do Dunk and Egg as like a miniseries, but those aren't finished, so obviously not. But
nothing's finished,
right? Yeah, and the key word with all that stuff is miniseries. They have to go in with a planned start and end point if they make it
have
good.
To have everything
otherwise.
Done. So with the prequel, like they're just going
lost
on their own, so it's okay. They don't have to rely on George for anything.
Right, and that's their goal right now, is to get a replacement series. They don't want something that's only going to be around for a couple seasons. They want something that has the potential to go on and on and on.
Which is kind of weird to me, because it sounds like they want to do multiple series, but they don't want to do all of them at the same time.
Like, well, money.
So, no, I understand that, but I mean, does that mean like they would do like a Westworld where they rotate year on and year off? Or like if this show fails, then they're going to try another idea and just keep doing it until people are just over it?
Yeah, they're going to try to make every penny off of Game of Thrones that they can.
Yeah,
they do a Spartacus where like they did a prequel one season because the guy got cancer.
Yeah. Oh no.
Well, he unfortunately died. They replaced the actor eventually.
R.I.P.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Because he was great on that show.
Yeah.
Do we think there's going to be like a Kraken in the book?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like, and that's like, man, those chapters of Old Town, I'm really, really looking forward to. Of whatever, there's so much crazy, weird, like magical shenanigans that can happen throughout that storyline.
Yeah. Well, in Fire and Blood, George, it's a high tower that is the captain of the boat that escapes the either storm or Kraken attack or what. But it's Eustace Hightower, and he's like, yeah, I lost my brother. All my men say it was a Kraken, but they're just peasants. I'm a High Lord and I know better. So, well,
actually, that was a key. Like how many times like Krakens got brought up in Fire and Blood. I would kind of be disappointed at this point if they didn't appear in Winds.
But George also, one thing he said about Fire and Blood was he put more red herrings into there than he has anything. I was like, so he's just trying to. Yeah.
Why would you bring that up, Kevin? Fuck that.
Sorry. I know.
Well, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
He brought up a lot of, I guess, world building because he knew if he didn't bring up a ton of it, that people would just, the people would assume that everything in there is going to happen in the main story. But I think there are Krakens. Hopefully one shows up.
Is Marwyn is he the Valyrian Steel Archmaester?
Yeah.
Oh, this is like a whole train of thought. Sorry, but like, I don't know. I'm really excited about him because I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the hell he's up to, but he's playing it all over the place. With Mary Masdor and the fact that he's just like, well, going to Marine. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about that because he.
Yeah, Makoro too. Some great, interesting. Priest characters.
Wizard battle, Marwyn and Makoro.
Well, that's kind of, I was thinking Marwyn and Euron. If Euron really does get leveled up the way that he seems to be. But we don't know. One of the things that I find very intriguing about Marwyn is that we don't know, like, what magic he's tapped into, right? Like we don't know if he's like R'hllor or if he's children or if he's, is he Weirwood Nut? Is he Valyrian? Is he like there? I feel like there are all these different sort of magic access points, and we don't really know which one he is prioritizing, I guess.
Sounds
or which
like the Carthene magic with the blue stuff, and with
like
what's his
like
face?
Pyat
Pyat.
Yeah, Pyat Pre's on the ship.
So he and Euron are. Oh no! I'm talking about Marwyn. I'm saying like we don't really know what flavor magic Marwyn is into. Like, is he a shadow binder? Is he a, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. So I'm excited to see.
Seems like all of
from
them.
the books.
Yeah.
There is a theory that he's the person who cut off Varys's manhood and tossed it into the fire.
Is he old enough? I didn't think he was that old.
He would have to. I feel like if that theory to work, he would have to be older than he appears, a la Mel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got it.
No magic.
Because what's the youngest Varys could be? I mean, what, like about 40 maybe? Like, I'm assuming he was the Mad King's spy master, so he would have had to be about 40, and then the magician that did that would have had to have been, or sorcerer would have had to probably have been an adult, so at least 10 or 15 years older.
Yeah, I mean the one thing you were saying about Fire and Blood, Kevin. I mean that is kind of a key point with. It's kind of why I've avoided bringing up some of the more out there stuff from the World Book, where it's we have to have foreshadowing and hints within the main series themselves when kind of theorizing about all this magical stuff, where we can't just take stuff from Fire and Blood. And the World Book, because if the stuff he's going to include the story, he needs to build up within the main series itself and not expect his readers to glean it from other sources.
Yeah, well, and it's not especially the magic stuff. There's supposed to be a lot of room for interpretation, and in all of his histories, that was, I think the thing we talked about in the chat was. Or I mentioned that I really like that he's never answered if Daeron the Good was actually falseborn or not, because it leaves a lot of room for things to happen in the main story. And I hope that once this is done, he doesn't go back and fill in all those plot holes, because I think it's a good thing that the readers get to fill in themselves and we get to argue about all that stuff forever. Casey.
Endeavor.
Vassals of Kingsgrave for life.
Eventually we can move on to funner things. Like the latest X-Men movie, Dark Phoenix, in theaters now.
Oh, God.
Don't see it.
Yeah, I have no plans to see it. Like, the reviews only confirmed it. Like,
I saw it last night, so you didn't have to.
I've heard it's just Sophie Turner going after Game of Thrones fans that signed the petition.
I wish she
Sophie
would.
Turner
I
is
wish.
actually not terrible in it. The movie is just terrible. But
yeah,
it's like it's not even bad. It's just it exists. It's just a thing.
It's completely soulless and boring. And I was like, I've watched these movies for almost 20 years now. I'm like, let's go see how they end it. Yeah, I thought the Game of Thrones ending was disappointing, but not really.
Yeah, it's probably a good assessment.
But I came home and I watched the Deadwood movie to cleanse my palate. So
yeah, that was so
good.
Yeah.
What's hard with X-Men, because it's such a so much of it is about a certain moral lesson. Wow,
yeah.
I guess my opinion was shit. It just got flushed.
No, Paul's not here with his soundboard.
Was that backup recorder?
No, it wasn't me.
It was not me.
Yeah,
we don't have to do all that, but
I kind of wish they'd stop making X-Men movies after Days of Future Past and then just giving it back to Marvel. But
I didn't even like that one, but yeah.
I liked it well enough. I mean, none of them are what I want out of these movies, but I did find it funny that there's a group in the movie that's like the like mutant police or something, and they wear these badges that say like MCU. It's like mutant control unit or something. So they're all wearing these badges that say MCU, and I'm like, oh, that's a big middle finger.
Yeah, especially when they're gonna come out in 5 years and just do it better.
I think that's about all we have to say here today. Thanks for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and we'll continue these. Bina has some character discussions coming up. I think she's starting with the Starks, reviewing their character arcs in the show, and we'll have more stuff like this coming out. Does anybody have any other podcasts or anything that they want to talk about? Kevin, did you have something?
I was gonna say, in researching all this, I was very touched by a quote from Mira that I forgot about, which is, "Remember old Nan's stories, Bran. Remember the way she told them, the sound of her voice. So long as you do that, part of her will always be alive in you." We remembered old Nan today. Damn it! I was being poignant.
Fail. Well, that is a sweet quote. And Mira is one of the only other people that kills a other, at least in the show. It's her, Sam, John, and Arya.
She kills another?
Yeah, in
the cave, right?
Yeah, in the cave, in the tree. She just like straight up gets him in the throat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then Summer dies pointlessly. Anyway,
and then they threw away her character
because we never see her again.
Like the bastards they are.
She couldn't have like been at the damn council in the Dragon Pit or something. I mean, they brought Rob and Aaron back. I mean, fuck, man.
I wonder if that quote suggests that Bran is actually old Nan's second life. Like old Nan warged him.
He just goes all the way back around.
Yeah.
Old Nan.
Old Nan is future Bran. Confirmed.
All right. Well, I will see you guys around and enjoy what's left of the day. May the others take you or not take you or something. Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Peace.